We're up to 8,114. So thank you so much.
I'm just going to nip to the loo quickly.
And we're going to, I think we're just going to play a little fundraiser. Maybe Rick can, no, he can't. I can see him raising his hands. Let's bring in Nigel Thorne, because I haven't spoken to Nigel yet. And it's about time I did. Nigel Thorne, hello. I think you're on mute.
Hi, Lou, how are you?
Oh, very well. Thank you so much for coming in and supporting us. Kath just popped out to get refreshed. But thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for organising it, and thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here. It's quite an honour. So I'm very happy to be able to speak. Not sure I can do it for an hour, but we'll see how we get on.
We'll see how we get on. So, Nigel, before we start, for those people who don't know much about you, can you just give us a little bit of a background about where it all started for you and how you've ended up coming across Publishing Wales and doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah, it came from a different place, I suppose. And really, it came to me from the trans aspect. So I got involved in this about almost 3 years ago, and it was in response. I was in a Facebook group, a Facebook friend who posted something out to her female friends saying, if a trans woman goes into the toilet, don't complain, because that's bigoted. And I said, I responded to that saying, well, there may be justifiable reasons for a woman to complain if a fully intact biological male comes into the female toilet. And there was, and the other thing I said, feelings are amoral. They're neither good nor bad. They just are. So although prejudice may be unhealthy, you can't judge a person on their prejudice. Prejudice itself is not, you don't overcome prejudice by telling them they're a bad person, just because, they feel the way they do. And there's this enormous pile. And I was going away for the weekend, so I didn't see most of the messages that came after I posted those things. But it was only when I came back on the Sunday night, there's this massive list of accusations accusing me of this heteronormative bigotry, and I should educate myself and educate my friends and do better. And to educate myself, I needed to watch a video on YouTube. Netflix, a film on Netflix. So that started it all, because it just seemed extraordinary, this judgmental attitude to people who were judging me based on my sexual orientation, essentially, and sex and skin color. I mean, it seemed madness, because there seems to be an army of people out there who would judge you for being bigoted just because of the person you are. So I started looking into the trans issue, and I set up a website, which is whatisawoman.uk. And then latterly, I saw the issues that are happening in Wales, and I started creating videos for that. So I'm supporting Public Child Protection Wales in the videos. So they're getting a bit of traction, which is great.
Yeah.
So that's the background,
Yeah, you did have a few, because when Kim started live streaming your shows, didn't she, Nigel, a week or it was a couple of weeks ago, I think, first, and it would not, when anyone was trying to share it, it was Nigel's video, when it was coming up, you can't share it.
Oh, yes, I got blocked. Yeah.
And it did that to everybody who tried to share it. But in the end, I think Kim said, but that actually did us a favour, because where it was being censored so many times and all these things were coming up on Facebook with people posting their thing where they couldn't share it, everyone went to the website and actually watched it from there. So she said this gaining traction from being censored. Yeah. And they are absolutely brilliant videos, Nigel. And obviously you've focused a lot on the gender ideology and the queer theory, which originally did come from a lady called Judith Butler. And I know that you've done a lot of work on her ideology, should we say. Can you just give us a little bit of information about Judith Butler and what her ideology was, Nige?
Yeah, well, I'll start off by talking initially about the gender identity ideology, because it's very linked with queer theory. And this is what's being pushed in schools. So pretty much every organization in schools or elsewhere, so Stonewall are doing it, Mermaids are doing it, Gender Intelligence are doing it, Gyres are doing it, Brooke are doing it, they're all doing it. And essentially what they're teaching kids is that we all have a gender identity that is independent of our sex body. So if your gender identity aligns with your sex, you're cisgender. And if it's different from your sex, you're trans. So that's the ideology. And it's simple to understand. But the question is whether it's true. Because the claim is we all have a gender identity, which a lot of children have at the age of 2. So you think, well, what does that mean exactly? Because certainly from the age of 2 or 3, you might be able to say to a class of kids, boys stand on that side of the room, girls stand on the other side of the room, and the children will know what you mean. You know, they'll go and stand to the right sides of the room. So there is, you could say that cognitive recognition that they know that they're boys and girls is a gender identity. But for children who are struggling with gender dysphoria, they have that cognitive recognition that they are the sex that people say they are. But they have a feeling that they want to be another sex, the opposite sex. So that's a feeling, not a cognitive rationalization. So to call that a gender identity, you're comparing apples and pears. You're comparing 2 different things. So they're not different things. You can't compare different things. That's insane. But that seems to be what's happening. I mean, the only way that boys and girls can have a gender identity. I mean, you ask a normal boy, what's it feel like to be a boy? He's not going to give you a sensible answer. There isn't a sensible answer. You ask a girl, what's it feel like to be a girl? There's no sensible answer to that. What you can say is, well, I like doing the things that boys do, or I like doing the things that girls do. That's the only thing you can say. So this is a real attack on gender non-conforming children. It's terrible. So the truth is, there's a cross-gender identity. That's that children who have gender dysphoria have a cross-gender identity. And there isn't such a thing, as far as I can see, which is a gender identity in people who don't have gender dysphoria. But this is what's being taught everywhere. And it's being taught to our kids. So it's a great attack on kids and a great threat to them. So this is where, so the question is, where does all this come from? And there's 3, as I can see it, 3 big forces pushing this. And the first is queer theory, which, as you mentioned, Kath, comes from, well, Judith Butler really talks about gender, which was gender theory is a subset of queer theory. So queer theory based on French philosophers, really, what's called post-structuralist philosophers, who believe that power lies within language, and by changing language, you can change people's perceptions. That's kind of the idea. So Judith Butler, in her seminal work, Gender Trouble, talked about the heterosexual matrix. There's the perception in society that to be normal, you must be masculine and sexually attracted to girls, or feminine and sexually attracted to boys, if you're a girl. So people who don't fit into those stereotypes, if you like, are at risk of being demonized and ridiculed and bullied. So her idea is that we need to undermine this heterosexual matrix, undermine heteronormativity. And the way we do that is by downplaying the significance of sex in discourse and elevating the significance of gender in any discourse. When you're talking, so that's why you see in the LGBT plus action plan, you see the word gender as a term that is used to refer to whether someone identifies as female or male. This is a new definition, comes straight from queer theory. The dictionary definitions are not used in the LGBT plus action plan. Queer theory definitions are. So that elevates the significance of an internal gender. And the word sex is defined as attributed to somebody. So it's a social construct rather than a material reality. And again, that's downplaying the significance of sex. So you're seeing this everywhere. You're seeing this everywhere. It is madness. So I will talk a little bit about the Judith Butler in terms of where that comes from. The gender identity was not a term that was invented in my lifetime. It was invented it was invented in my lifetime. So it didn't exist when I was born. And people argue whether it was John Money or Robert Stoller who came up with it. Certainly Judith Butler refers to Robert Stoller in her work. So Robert Stoller hypothesized that he worked with transsexuals. He hypothesized that all of us have a gender core, an internal core of our gender, which is partly from our natural personality and partly as a result of social influences. So Judith Butler took that idea of the gender core from Robert Stoller and came up with this idea that gender is something that is performed. She talks about performativity. So we perform a gender, because we do naturally in life. And then a gender identity is created as a result of performing that gender. That's what she came up with. So that's not what's being taught these days. What's being taught is something that comes. Judith Butler's ideas became very influential on Tumblr, along with lots of teenage girls on social media. So it's this thing's really come from social media. They took Judith Butler's ideas and made them less sophisticated. So instead of performing a gender, you do have a gender innately. That's the idea that comes from Tumblr. So this is where the 72 genders come from. It's from teenage girls, really, on social media, coming up with all these different things as they're exploring. So this is kind of what's being taught now. Yeah, everybody has a gender that is different from this or what. That is independent of their sex and maybe different or maybe the same. So it is quite dangerous. So I will go on to talk about the idea of queer theory and how they use language to queer binary oppositions. So this is the idea that Western society is composed of binary oppositions. There's man and woman, and there's heterosexual and homosexual, there's right-handed and left-handed. And one pole of this binary is always oppressing the other pole. So males oppress women, and heterosexuals oppress homosexuals, and right-handed people oppress left-handed people, because the pole always comes to the fore and oppresses that which is regarded as abnormal. So as a mental exercise, I thought it might be good to walk through what might have happened in the past if you're going to queer the right hand, left hand binary. Because in the past, certainly, people who are left-handed had to use their right hand instead.
Yeah.
You know, and so that caused a lot of problems for kids who are left-handed, and suggestions that may have led to stammering and that sort of thing, where they have to force something to do something that's not natural to them. So you might say, if you go back in time as a queer theorist, well, the right hand is oppressing the left hand. Yeah. We need to clear that binary opposition. The way to do that is to talk about people who can do things with both hands. They're ambidextrous, so they're equally as good as with the right hand as with the left. And if you do that, you can say, well, you know, if you focus on talking a lot about these people who can do things with both hands, you clear that binary opposition.
Yeah.
And you start saying, oh, there's a spectrum between the right hand and the left hand. You know, it's movable. So suddenly being left-handed isn't abnormal, it's part of the spectrum. So that's what's being done with gender and sex, essentially, is that queering the gender and sex binaries. Because and the origins for Judith Butler's work certainly lies in response to homophobia, really. Because in the past, and I'm sure it exists now, there is homophobia, no doubt. I can remember when I was growing up, or a young man, really, I started a job and worked in Cardiff, and next door was a Christadelphian church. And one day I passed that church, and it had an advertisement for a sermon talking about AIDS, and saying it's God's vengeance on gay people, you know. And it's so Christian. It was quite shocking. And in those days, gay people wouldn't come out. They were very much in the closet. So pride came about. There's people were able to feel comfortable expressing their sexuality over time, and things gradually improved. But gender theory in Judith Butler's works is derived really as a response to homophobia. So her aim is worthy. but the tactics they're using as a strategy they're using to break down homophobia in society by changing the definitions of words, to me, is insane. And so that's why I'm campaigning against this, because it's saying that it is the words itself that is doing the oppression. Well, it's not. That's not the case. Words itself aren't doing the oppression. It's the material reality that's oppressing people. But so that's one of the things that is pushing this. Queer theory is very influential in universities. Professor Reynolds is up to her eyes in queer theory, and she's pushing this change in the language.
Yeah, I think talking about Emma Reynolds as well, Nigel. I mean, I don't know if you've noticed, there was a review brought out. Obviously, Emma Reynolds, for anyone who's watching, was the professor in Cardiff University who basically, Kirsty Williams, being ex-education minister for Wales, gave her the sort of reins, really, and Emma Reynolds wrote the Welsh curriculum, and she is highly invested in this queer theory, Nigel, isn't she?
She is, yeah. So, and I'm sure she's had influence on she's part of the expert panel as well, which drew up the LGBTQ plus action plan. So I'm sure she's had influence on that, because you see the queer theory influence in the changing in the definition of the words.
Yeah.
And that's why I just thought, because I find it extraordinary. Why does the BBC think this is worth remarking on? Welsh governments decides to change the definition of the words. Why doesn't the Guardian or the national newspapers think this is worth remarking on? Why do journalists think this is worth remarking on? It is not the role of governments to change the meanings of words. So why are they doing it? And there needs to be pushback on that. That's the insanity.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, because even within the Equality Act 2010, gender I've noticed this with a lot of the people who are pushing this agenda, and how there's some people who actually pulled out of the policy for the LGBT because of this. But it's loosely throwing around gender identity as a protected characteristic, and actually it isn't yet at the moment. We've got gender reassignment, which is a protected characteristic, meaning that the person would have to have completely transitioned to be part of the equality, to be recognised under one of the protected characteristics in the Equality Act. But even Ellie Barnes, because I read her book, How to Transform Your School into an LGBT Friendly Place, and I read that book, and even she had said, sorry, what was I on about then? I got distracted by the dogs. What was I saying?
You were saying that people are using gender identity instead of
using gender identity within the protected characteristics, and it's actually not in there. Now, that's not to say that they won't put it in there, because I do believe that they're trying to push policy and whatever to make that. But that would then mean that if you then, Nige, could go into you can self-ID, you don't need any of the shebang to do anything. You could just essentially go dressed as you are into a female space and say you identify as a female and get away with it.
It's unmeasurable. How can you possibly have a protected characteristic for something you can't measure? You can't see. It's just insane. I will correct you, Kath, on one thing about the gender reassignment characteristic, because it does say it does cover people who intend to transition or the process of going through transition, as well as people who are fully transitioned. So it does cover people, which is sort of a bit of a grey area. That
is a bit of a grey area, isn't it? Because that could mean anything then. Because if you were sort of partially transitioning, then I'm guessing you would have had to have been on perhaps puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. But if you intend to, then that could just be you as you are now, saying, well, I intend to do it in the next whatever, so I'm protected under that characteristic.
Well, there's a suspecting court that might require some evidence of that intention rather than just saying. There must be
these puberty blockers, how long do they have to stay on these? How long do they stay on these puberty blockers? Until after puberty? Is it just an ongoing thing?
Well, yeah. It seems to me that they have to, don't they? Because until such time as surgery takes place, because they need to suppress the natural hormones being produced. So how do you do that, other than using these puberty blockers? It depends on what time puberty starts. So that they'll start them at puberty, but of course puberty comes at different times for different children. So if the required puberty blockers, it might be, I think it's 10 to 12, depending on whether you're a boy or a girl. I think it's 8 for boys, about 12-year-olds for boys. And then they carry on, and then taking cross-sex hormones at 16, I think is the standard. And then potentially surgery at 18 maybe.
And these are things that have to go on anyway to the end of life, then, don't they? They have to maintain.
Yeah.
You would have to take them for the rest of your life.
It's criminal. It
is criminal. It's abuse. It is abuse.
Yeah. I mean, queer theory is one of those things which is pushing this, and it's hugely influential. The other thing which is pushing this ideology is the number of trans people who claim to have gender identity that is different from their biological sex. So they're pushing the ideology too, and they're very influential. So there's Kat Burden is head of GIAS, and she's on the expert panel for the Welsh Government. So she's transitioned at the age of 55, I think, or 58. And so she was an airline pilot for years and years and years, and then decided to transition in her 50s, and is now advising the Women Equality Select Committee in Parliament, saying that, puberty blockers are essential so they don't have to go through what I did. Well, is she really the best person to?
No, exactly. She's not, is she? Transitioning at age 50-something. She's way past puberty.
Yeah, I mean, to actually assume that she's transitioning for the exact same reason at the age of 55.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be, it's not going to be likely, is it? It's going to be completely different.
Nigel, do you think this can be stopped?
Well, there's lots. There is fight back. I mean, this weekend there's a conference in Ireland organised by GenSpect. The GenSpect are saying that the standards of care provided by this international organisation, WPATH, fit for purpose. Now, WPATH is referenced in the LGBT plus action plans, and they produced standards of care, which I think came out earlier this year. And they've got UNIT as a gender identity, in fact, on their website, they had a link to it's kind of a fetish site for men who had sexual fantasies about children boys who got castrated. And it is extraordinary. It is absolutely extraordinary. This is WPATH, the world profession, something transgender health. And they seem to be completely, away from anything scientific at all. It is just something ideologically driven. So GenSpect, an organization who got some really good people there, and they're pushing alternative things, which are more psychological based rather than just straight into surgery. But to have gender identity as a unit is just insane.
Yeah, hopefully we can.
So yeah, I think there's so much opposition. I think it can be stopped. We're going to see it Suzanne transition at some point.
Yeah.
At that point, you can't carry on ignoring it. It'll happen.
I think it's got so bad, Nige, isn't it? We're at a state now where we can see the fallout of what's been going on for the last few years, and
so it's bad. It's coming, is it? The fallout.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. When you've got, I think, in America at the moment, they've got 25,000 children registered. That's just registered with trans regret. 25,000, and that's only the ones that are registered. This is a massive epidemic of confusing and destroying young children, because these surgeries and the damage that can be done just from the pharmaceuticals, the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones, they are irreversible, regardless of what people the activist and lobbyist groups are telling people. They are actually, I think Lupron had a big massive fine, didn't they, not long ago?
I can't remember. I mean, certainly there's been complaints about Lupron in the way it's been used for other things. Because Lupron was developed for prostate cancer. So prostate cancer can be treated, but it's also been used for the chemical castration of sex offenders. And now it's going into be used on children. It seems strange, isn't it? But that's what you're doing on children using Lupron. Is chemical castration.
Yeah.
There was a big fun, yeah, there was, and I don't know what it related to because I can't recall.
I think there was some, because I'm guessing you've seen Matt Walsh's What Is a Woman, and on there they had a guy, he's a trans man called Scott Nugent, and he was talking about it on there about, well, basically he speaks out against it all as a trans man, and he's, you know, quite, well, he's very fierce on it and says he knows, he's aware now. He said, I got hooked, I got manipulated and bought into this at age 42. So what chance do children have on it? And he's saying he knows he's not going to live to see his grandchildren. He knows he's got a very short, lifespan, and he basically tells the truth about the whole transition and what he has to do every day and what he has to take to stop this happening. And you know, he's Scott Nugent, I think his name is. He's a brilliant. He really is, because you know he should technically be the poster boy then for this whole agenda. Look, you know, especially for our young girls, if they want us. Look at this, you know, this who was once a female, because he does, you know, Scott, he does look like a man. You know, he's had all the stuff and whatever he does. So this is what can be achieved. But instead, what they're seeing in the media, the likes of, you know, they're showing it as a glamorous thing. And, oh, look at this, look, nothing happens. There's a glamorous person sat next to me. They've changed and nothing happens and it's absolutely fine. When in reality, it's much, much different. But the detransitioners of this movement are being completely ignored.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, Scott's, I think he's in London at the moment. I think
is he? He's over here. He's an American guy, I think.
He's over here, I'm sure, this weekend. So you might get into the news. Hopefully he does. Because, he was a star. I didn't see all that film because you needed to pay for it.
Oh, do you? I didn't have to pay for it. Oh.
They did trailers which are free, but then the whole film was free.
I'll see if I can get hold of a thing for you, Nigel. If I can get hold of a thing, I'll send it over because it's well worth a watch.
Yeah. He's very good, but he spent an absolute fortune because there's so many complications with his surgery. But he's had the artificial penis created, and that caused him physically. So he's struggling, but he's very brave. You know, he's
very brave. Fair play to him. And actually, when they do, just Kim had shared a photo the other day, and I didn't actually know what it was for ages. It took a minute for me to figure out what was going on, but it was basically showing the arms of the girls who were going for phalloplasty surgery.
Oh my God, send that to Rick.
And they basically they take it from the arm. This is not natural or normal in any way, shape or form, and it is going to present its own, and is presenting its own ill effects. And these children are being told that it's absolutely fine to do this.
Yeah, there's lots of complications with phalloplasty.
There's what did we watch? We watched something recently with that girl. She was just in there in her bikini, sitting in her bathroom, wasn't she? And she was going through the female anatomy while she was standing up. And she was just in her bikini, and she was showing the difference between a man and then she went in, and it was very hard to watch, where she showed how they made a lady's. Yeah,
and actually what they have to do,
the procedure of how they make vagina. And
what they need to do to maintain that.
To maintain it, because it is actually just nothing more than an open wound.
Yeah, the body's trying to close it up naturally, And they're telling children.
And they're telling children this, and then the other, you know, it distresses me so much when they're scaring little girls, you know, as well, you know, that they're going to bleed. And all of this, you know, before they've even thought of periods, even before a parent's having that chat. Yeah. You know, while they're that little, you just nurture. You don't put this on them, but they're literally going into primary school, and they've still got up to like 10 years. They're going to primary school.
You're going to be scared if somebody tells you you're going to start bleeding out,
especially at that young age.
Properly.
Yeah. So it's just criminal.
It is. I mean, the complications for women, if they don't have the phalloplasty, is that they do go into premature menopause. So that's because they're stopping the estrogen, they're pushing the testosterone, and so they're getting menopause, I think, in the early 30s or even before then.
Oh, that's another side effect of taking these.
Yeah,
well, because obviously it's the opposite hormone, isn't it? It's going to be testosterone for a girl and estrogen for a boy.
Yeah, and so what? And of course, Jazz Jennings, he was male to female, but he needs to do regular dilation of that wound in order to control it, he said. So it's these are not trivial things.
No.
Why it's why people are pushing this ideology. Well, so there's the trans people. There used to be, as you're probably aware, there used to be two different cohorts of people that would transition. There used to be very young, so children before the age of 6 would have the symptoms of genital dysphoria. Then they would tend to be referred to about puberty time, just when they go to school. But then they would usually turn out to be gay children, and it's predominantly boys. And then you got this other cohorts who are middle-aged men, and they of course transition because of what was called transvestic fetishism. That's how it's defined in the DSM, I think. And clinical psychologist Dr. Ray Blanchard coined the term orthogynephilia, which is a love of oneself as a woman. He used that term, which is a broader thing. So transvestism just involves sexual arousal when you put on the clothes of a woman. But there's people as men as well who want to do the surgery, as well as some men who want to do the behavioral things, sort of tending to have periods and this sort of thing. So it's all very, very odd, but men got turned on by it. So that's why some of them want to transition, because of this fetish, really.
Exactly.
But they don't want to tell people.
We've had to have parent consultations, and the only advice I can give you around that is don't send a letter home to say you're about to embark on this work.
That's much more socially acceptable to come up with that one than so they're pushing this in a big way. That's why you see, you got, as well as in charge of GIAS, or care trustees of GIAS, Kath Burden, who's in charge of the family conversion therapy campaign, is another trans-identified male, Helen Belcher. So she's very anxious to transition to children as well, and you get quite a few of these.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
I don't understand that.
I know, but it's putting it on. Actually, you mentioned Jazz Jennings there, Nigel, right? And I've heard of Jazz before. Now, I sent it to you. I don't know if you watched it. The other day, there was a short clip of Matt Walsh.
Yes.
Explain. That was
I'm
Jazz.
going to send that to Rick. Did we send that to Rick? I'm pretty sure
I think we did, yeah. And that was Jazz. And basically, because obviously this happened when this child was young, right? And the mother was on this. They had this show, didn't they? That I think I was aware of it. I just never saw it. But he played a bit of the show. And basically it was the mum who was saying, she was sat with her friends, they were having dinner or something, and during, when obviously, because he was put in front of the public eye and in the cameras from very young, pushed by his mother, and she had the surgery, the bottom surgery, obviously the fake vagina or whatever, and we were just talking about that, having to keep it open. She was saying to her friends, she better remember to do this, or I'll be, basically she was pushing all of this onto this young, and even when he was watching Matt's reaction to when she was watching Matt's reaction to her, you could see, even though she argued against what he was saying, you could see it in her face that she actually did know because there was a clip of when she was saying to her mother, I just want to be me. I don't feel like me. So she's obviously got doubt there. And the mother's going, no, it's just one of those days, you're fine type of thing. Well, that's Munchausen's by proxy all the way. And this, obviously, like you just said, is going to happen, especially if they're in a trans relationship.
Yes.
And they're allowed to adopt now as well, which is a danger. But they're going to push this onto their children, surely. And they are doing.
Yeah, well, they are. And there's lots of people who are bought into the ideology, and lots of people believe it. Lots of youngsters. I mean, lots of youngsters really do feel this is a social justice issue. So that's why we've got some conflict on this. It feels like a real battle between good and evil, and it's just so difficult to know how long this will come to work through, because I'm sure at the end things will be okay. But So there's three big things I said pushing this ideology. One is queer theory, two of these trans activists, and the third thing is money. So much money being pushed into this, so much money. And everywhere you look, it's the same organizations are pushing it. So Stonewall became trans inclusive after a grant of $100,000 from Arthur's Foundation. Arthur's Foundation have also contributed money to the Gendered Unicorn. Arthur's Foundation have contributed money to Trans Day of Remembrance. Arthur's Foundation have contributed money to the ILGA.
So they're a big player. Who were they, Nigel? Who were they? Say again.
Arthur's Foundation, a philanthropic organization, in inverted commas, founded by a gay man, John Stryker, but he's an heir to a multi-billion-dollar medical corporation, which is private corporation. So there's, at least the idea that the sufficient, there may be a vested interest there somewhere. But they've spent about $500 million globally on pushing gender identity.
That's a lot of money. $500 million. That is a lot of money to be throwing around.
That's a lot of money to be thrown around.
Yeah.
So there's the Open Societies Foundations. There's so much money going into this. It is extraordinary. So they're providing a lot of the material. And of course, they're influencing lots of the organizations as well. So they're putting money into the, in America, it's the Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, getting lots of money from them. There's an organization which goes into schools in America, GLSEN. The founder of GLSEN used to work for Arthur's Foundation for a while. Lots of money going to them. There's money going to Planned Parenthood. Tons going into Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood are pushing drugs, cross-exomens on kids from the age of 18. That's without parental authority. I think it can be early with parental authority. So lots of money going into this. And it's, this is the new God, isn't it? It's just, it's making money. The new thing.
Oh, massive money. And that's not to mention the money that each of those surgeries are getting as well. Not, obviously you've got the constant flow of the puberty blockers and the cross-sex hormones. They can just flow those out. And then I've heard, and I haven't checked it myself, but a few people have said it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, actually, Scott Nugent said it on What Is a Woman, that each surgery can cost like up to £1 million or even more than that, So there's a big push in the pharmaceutical industry as well. It is, you are right, it's like the new God. It is absolutely everywhere. It's inescapable. It's in all, children's cartoons, children's
everywhere.
Films, videos, whatever. You can just walk through town and look in a window and everybody's adopted it. The LGBTQ flag, and everyone wants to be progressive and the most diverse and whatever, and doesn't want it. So they're all jumping on this big massive bandwagon, and they're just fueling the fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Mark Drake was in Swansea Pride today, so he's
Oh, is he?
There's a video of him speaking there, and he's talking about trans rights are human rights, and we shouldn't push back on all the successes that we've had so far. And they just don't listen to what's being said. Welsh politicians do not listen to any organisation who wants to speak to them. They're so invested in this ideology. It is frightening. Because, they must know. I mean, I can't believe Jeremy Miles doesn't know about queer theory. That seems extraordinary. He must do. He must think that this social engineering project is something worthwhile doing. Because he went to Oxford University, did law, I think. So he's an intelligent fellow. He can't possibly not know about queer theory.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes you realise that it's a yes man, Nigel. Do you know what I mean? He knows full well what he's doing.
But it's lying to kids. And this is the danger. It's lying to kids for political purposes.
Yeah.
It's the damage we're doing to
it is,
these little kids now we're doing this. Whole reason that we're doing this is we want to prevent this damage that's being done to children. Children are being told that men can have babies, that they can have two. This is not right. It is not right. The children are being lied to. They're being deceived. And what damage is this doing to this generation coming up? What kind of a mess are these people going to be in?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not particularly religious, okay, but I'm going to throw this at you because I don't think. I mean, there's a passion market. If you went to church, occasionally go to church, and if you go to church over Easter, you'll hear it. And certainly in the secular market, I don't think you can read that and not see parallels today. Because to me, queer theory is trying to deceive. Oh, yeah. So they are the new Judas Iscariot. Okay, it's under the radar. They're trying to deceive by changing the meanings of words. You've got a pile of youngsters who believe now this new ideology that generally queer theory has created, that there is such a thing as a gender identity, and it's a great social justice movement. And they are this mad crowd who are just attacking anybody who pushes back. Now, in the Senate, there's one politician on the left who's brave enough to speak up, and that was Helen Mary Jones. And she was absolutely monstered by the Mayor of Bangor, by lots of people who were in the LGBT expert panel advising the Welsh government. And, all she was saying, she's worried about kids, the young girls who are medically transitioned. He was forced to apologise. Adam Price threw her under the bus, essentially. And every candidate for last Senate election had to have training from gendered intelligence. Gendered intelligence, the CEO, Jay Stewart, said, he came to his self-understanding through queer theory. He was influenced by queer theory. It all comes back to queer theory. So no politician now will speak up because they know what's going to happen. They're the St. Peter, they denied Jesus 3 times, essentially. They're too scared to speak up. The expert panel being appointed are the high priests. If you look at their Twitter feeds, they're just, there's a woman who's telling J.K. Rowling to F off. I mean, these are not reasonable people. There's this woman who's a nurse who's saying to the curves of blood on their hands after this Brianna Gay got murdered the other day. So the rhetoric from these people on the advisory panel for the government, the rhetoric they use is appalling. Yeah. It is so judgmental. So they're the new high priests. And the Welsh government are kind of conscious part of washing their hands. They don't think they know what's going on. They're just washing hands and they've outsourced any critical thinking to Stonewall. That happened years ago. So
Stonewall have got a massive boot in everywhere, haven't they? Yeah. And I think the Scottish, didn't the Scotland pay $1 million? Can't remember now. It was a couple of years ago, something to do with Stonewall, and they were given, was it 1 million from the Scottish government, Nicola Sturgeon's government?
I'm telling Wales gives more money than any other government in the United Kingdom for Stonewall, because the British government cut back significantly on their country. So Wales gives more money than any government.
And that's the problem with these organisations as well, Nigel, they as much influence and everything as they get over, well, especially school children, but everywhere else. And yet they're unregulated. There's nobody sort of looking out, who's doing what or who's part of these organisations.
No, it's a belief, you either believe in this ideology or not. And if you don't believe it, that's it. I mean, it's a belief system. You can't. Queer theory is it changes the meaning of words and it feels the need to do that in order to achieve its aims. You can't really have a dialogue because you're working from different definitions of words. So there isn't any dialogue. You have no dialogue. All you have is a belief system which is going unchallenged and just plowing its way, causing havoc everywhere and in our schools as well. It's a belief system. It's a cult. It's extraordinary, the influence of that.
It is a massive cult. Oh, well, thank you so much, Nige, for coming on today. We really, really appreciate you. Everything you do, and your videos are absolutely superb. Where can people find your content, Nige? Because they're very much worth watching because they're just so informative.
Yeah, so Perth Fan Man. So that's what I am on Twitter. It's one word, PERFFANMAN. I thought it was a turf, but I thought it couldn't be a turf because I'm a man. So I'm a fan of turfs. So it's Turf Fan Man. But then there's 2 words in YouTube. So it's Turf Fan, separate word man. But look out for me there. And looking, okay. Haven't got quite as many hits as Matt Walsh, but I'm doing all right.
You're doing well. You're doing
We'd love
great.
you to have you to come back on after this fundraiser and podcast-athon to do a show with us on Liberty Tactics, Nigel. It would be great.
Cool. All right. Excellent. Well, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
thank you
much.
so
Do you
much
think you
for
just
coming
give our
on.
fundraiser a plug and why we need to encourage people to support these amazing families who are out there taking on?
Right now, guys, this is really quite serious stuff now. What's happening? Ideology is being pushed to our kids, which is extremely damaging, and it's going to be damaged. Our kids are being lied to, so we need to stop this. So, Public Child Protection Wales are doing a great job trying to raise awareness and trying to challenge the judicial appeal judgment. So, please, if you have any money, please dig deep and make a contribution to their funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
so
Nigel.
much, Nigel. Thank you. God bless.
Okay. All the best, guys. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. So we've got the lovely Sandy Adams coming up in about 20 minutes. And I'm going to just see if Rick can patch in with us. Come on, Rick. Rick's up in Bristol.
Come
He's
on,
missing out
Rick.
on us. Get on camera, Rick, please. Come on and tell us what we're doing, because we're going to have a little 15-minute break so Kat and I can just...
Well, we can have...
You're on telly. Are you on telly now? Say hello to everyone, Rick.
Hi, everyone. we can have a quick break, which we had lined up, or we've got the Facebook video that you just sent me, but it's raw, so...
Let's put whatever you've lined up. I mean, he's got the Matt Walsh clip, but it's raw, he said.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
If
we'll
you can
put
play
that out. If
that's
that
worth
gives
it.
us a little bit of time before Sandy comes
Okay.
on to go and get cups of tea and in about 15 minutes.
I hope you've enjoyed the guests so far, guys. They've been wonderful
I'll
guests.
just give you a little update on our fundraiser, because our personal, it's up at 8,144. Obviously, 5,000.
980.
So let's just say it's $6,000.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
So
that's
we've done
20 quid. For the sake of the 20 quid, right? It was $6,000, so we've made 2,164.
Yeah, 2,164. So wouldn't it be nice? I said, let's get it up to 10, but let's try and get it up to, if we could, guys, 10 grand by 6 o'clock would be amazing.
Yeah.
So that would be then 5 grand.
$4,000.
4 grand.
Yeah,
Yes.
but that'd
Yes,
be really
$4 grand.
good. That'd be really good.
That would be
so
really
I
good.
hope you've enjoyed it so far, guys. We'll be
And
back.
we have got another long time.
We've only been here for about 3 hours.
4 hours. So
Oh, yeah, 4.
we've still got a long time. You've still got us for another 32.
Yay. Right, yeah, we're just gonna have a quick break, guys. This video that
It's
Rick's gonna
raw.
play is
It's
raw,
a
but it's
raw
very
out.
good.
So here it comes. It's 20 minutes, and then we'll be back with the lovely Sandy Adams, who made
Looking forward to
groundbreaking.
I watched
Like
it.
her in Glastonbury Town Council.
Yeah, I watched that.
Oh my god, it's brilliant. And if she can, she's going to get behind the mums and the children. So what we can expect coming from Sandy supporting our cause, we're just onto a winner, because she's a little powerhouse. So enjoy this. This is what the guys, Nigel and us, were just talking about, the Matt Walsh, the newest video, all about jazz. I think.
Yeah, that was what the program was called, but this is about jazz. Yeah.
See you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Jazz Jennings is a name you probably recognize. He's now a 22-year-old man who identifies as a woman, or I should say was identified as a woman. This is not a path that Jennings chose for himself. It was chosen for him at a very young age. And we know that about him, and we know much else about him, because his parents not only chose to make him trans from a young age, but also chose to make him a public figure from a young age. We're told that Jennings was first diagnosed with gender dysphoria at the age of 4, though his mother insists that he identified as a girl before that, before he was even old enough to talk. Somehow he was identifying as a girl. By 6 years old, the child was already doing the media rounds. His mother shuffled him from one interview to the next. He was featured on 2020, the Rosie O'Donnell show, which existed at the time as well, had him. By the age of 7, Jazz's parents had established their own foundation, which is the Trans Kid Purple Rainbow Foundation. And this foundation was made so that they could assist trans youth and also, as it happens, receive donations. Coincidence there that they started doing the media rounds and then they started a foundation where they could take donations. Total coincidence. Barely into middle school, Jazz starred in his first documentary, I Am Jazz, A Family in Transition, premiered on the Oprah Winfrey Network in 2011. A couple years later, Jazz had another 2020 interview, a follow-up. 2 years after that, while still a child, Jazz, quote-unquote, co-wrote a children's book about his life titled I Am Jazz. And that was in the same year that Jazz Jennings began receiving awards and accolades and recognition from organizations like GLAAD and Time Magazine and many others. A year later, the Jazz Jennings reality TV show debuted on TLC when he was still a kid, followed by the Jazz Jennings memoir. And while he was being constantly filmed and documented with this spotlight shining on him, he was also at the same time being led from one step in the medical transition process to the next, starting with, of course, the chemical castration drugs at the age of 11, followed by hormones, and then genital mutilation at the age of 17. Now, yes, we're told, right, that nobody's performing actual surgeries on kids. That's not happening. And yet one of the most prominent trans-identified people in the country had surgery when he was a kid. That was just the first surgery, by the way. By the age of 20, Jazz had undergone 3, quote-unquote, gender confirmation surgeries. So he still wasn't old enough to legally purchase a beer, Bud Light presumably, and yet he had been taking drugs for nearly a decade at that point, and had been getting one gender transition surgery after another for the past 3 years before that. Jazz's mother was there every step of the way, of course, helping him along, and that, quote, help would often take on a very aggressive and horrendously disturbing form. So listen to this clip from the reality show just a few years ago, shortly after Jazz got, I think this was his first surgery, and here's his mother.
But with her, I'm worried about like her mental well-being and her dilation. The minute she leaves my house, we have a dilation problem.
That is a concern. When you don't have that watchful eye, they tend to go back to old patterns.
I have woken Jazz out of a dead sleep and taken the dilator and put the lubrication on it and said, here, you take this and you put it in your vagina. If not, I will. But Jazz is bad, even when I'm home once a day. I will be so mad if she goes away to college and that thing seals up. I will wring her neck. Can you imagine? No, I can't imagine.
Can we imagine? No, we can't. We cannot imagine any of this. Yeah, it's happening. Yes, that is the mother of Jazz Jennings talking about how she forcibly dilates her son's fake neo-vagina in the middle of the night. You know, normal mom stuff. And this never-ending process of dilation and lubrication is necessary to prevent the quote-unquote vagina from closing up, because it's not a vagina, it is an open wound, which is carved into the place where the male genitalia used to be. This is what was done to Jazz Jennings at the age of 17. He was butchered, turned into a lifelong medical patient in pursuit of something that he can never attain, searching for a female identity that will always be out of reach. And this explains why, most recently, Jazz was on camera on the reality show, expressing deep and profound despair and telling his mother that he, quote unquote, doesn't feel like himself. Listen.
So, are you feeling like you wanted to start talking about... Are you okay?
I'm okay.
I'm like I'm gonna cry. But
You know I can't get out of my head.
I know. No, listen.
It just doesn't stop.
It's okay. Give me a hug. It's okay. I know what you're going through. We've been there before.
No, it still doesn't stop now.
I
And
know.
I'm already going
Well,
back to negative.
But the more you're talking about yourself, it gets harder. You're digging in and it's making you put a magnifying glass on what's already difficult as it is. So this is hard for you, I know, and we don't want to push
And
you
I know
anymore.
I'm the one doing it. Like,
I know, you're your own worst enemy.
I feel kind of all over the place, and like my mind is very cluttered and not clear. And I really want to have that clarity. I really want to understand myself and be able to read my own soul and what I want. And it's just very challenging. And I think I'm kind of breaking down a little bit and spiraling into negativity. I just want to feel like myself. Like, that's
Right.
it. I don't
Like the
care.
old Jazz?
All I want is to be happy and feel like me, and I don't feel like
What
me
is me?
ever.
I know what you're going through, she says. Oh, really? Do you? Did your mom take you to Dr. Frankenstein to be genitally butchered as well? So you know what that's like? Of course, this is terrible to watch, unfathomably sad, and I feel nothing but sympathy and compassion for Jazz Jennings. He was subjected to a lifelong brainwashing campaign, which began practically from birth and which led to permanent physical changes in his body long before he could have possibly had any chance to realize what was being done to him. He is a victim, though, like many abuse victims, he is at this point in his life not able to see it, not able to see the fact that he's an abuse victim, or at least not able to accept it. That's what came through yesterday when Jazz published a video on his own YouTube channel responding to a number of conservative commentators, including myself. Jazz reacts to a segment of this show from a few weeks ago where I am myself responding to that clip we just watched of Jazz expressing despair and apparent regret. And in his response, he says that I've misconstrued it, and he insists that the surgery brought him happiness and joy. And then we get to this part. Listen.
So now let's go to this same person.
Okay.
I'm not even going to name him, and this is what he says later in the interview. This is the person, everyone, who said, Jazz is so unhappy, and it's because of this, is what he says. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Let's watch.
And I want you to respond to this, and maybe whatever you want to say to this.
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Mother brainwashed this kid into doing this, and now she's going to keep that brainwash going. So he may never fully come to terms with what happened to him, at least as long as his disgusting, wretched mother is still alive.
It's just really hard to watch that. I don't know why people are so intent on bringing our community down. Like, why do you care? Let us just be. Let us be happy. Let us be ourselves. We're not hurting anyone. You know, we need to celebrate each other and our diversity, not bring each other down. And anytime you're wishing death on anyone, I think you need to take a step back and look at yourself and your, you know, whatever's going on with you. My mom is not the abuser. People like him are the ones abusing us by saying these awful negative things about our community. You know, we are under attack, and it is clear in this video that there are people out there who want to hurt us, who want to see us fail, who want to see us be miserable, and that's really f***ed up because we're not wishing that upon anyone. We just want people to open their eyes and see that we are beautiful, everyone is beautiful, and everyone deserves to be their authentic self. Our messages are about love, about positivity, and just to see someone like this saying such negative things, it's, you know, it's hurtful. It sucks. My whole life I have faced bullying. I have faced people, you know, attacking me and my identity, and I just wish people would let me be. You know, why do you... Oh, it's so frustrating.
Now, I was going to respond to this just sort of in general terms, but I think instead I'd like to be more direct. Jazz has addressed me directly, asked some questions, and I'd like to answer them. So, Jazz, first of all, I understand why you're frustrated that people are talking about you and, from your perspective, involving themselves in your private life. You are absolutely right that your conversation with your mother that we saw there about your own deep emotional and psychological pains should not have been a public spectacle. I never should have seen that or heard it. Nobody should have. But I didn't make it a public spectacle. And I didn't make you into a public figure. Your mom did that. She did it way before you could have possibly chosen any of this for yourself. She had you on 2020 and starring in Oprah Winfrey specials when you were a young child. She had a camera in front of your face. She was parading you around as a mascot for transgenderism at an age when, you know, when I was that age, I was spending my time watching cartoons and playing outside in the woods. And I wish that you had a childhood like that. You deserved to have that kind of childhood. But your mom took that away from you. She was more interested in monetizing you, using you as a vehicle to promote her ideology. And it's proven to be an effective vehicle, which is why I have to respond. You want to be left alone. I get that. I wish that you were left alone way back when you were a child, left to simply be a child. That's the life you should have had. You had a right to it. And it was taken from you by the adults in your life, especially your mom. And I'm sorry that it was taken from you. I truly am. Listen, even if it was somehow true that you really are a female, you need to go through this necessary process of becoming your true self through the surgeries and everything else, which it isn't true at all. It just simply isn't. But that still would not justify your mom's decision to turn you into a public figure as a child, a symbol for a cause from such a young age. Even if we accept the logic behind transitioning children, which again, I do not accept and never would, it still would be unforgivable for a parent to make it into a public exhibition, which is what your parents did. Now, you also accuse me of wanting to hurt you and make you miserable. I don't. I'm not out to hurt you. I see that you are hurt. You said it yourself. You don't feel like yourself. And you don't feel like yourself because you have been led since childhood down a path of self-rejection. You say that everyone deserves to be their authentic self. I could not possibly agree more. Deserve is an apt choice of words, in fact, in this case. Every child deserves to be shown the way towards truth and their own true selves. Every child deserves to grow up in the light, surrounded by adults who are sources of clarity and guidance for them. You didn't have that, and you still don't. And that's not fair. You have been fed lies, one lie after another, and they are the worst kinds of lies. They are lies that deprive you of the recognition of your true self. This is the deepest form of abuse. I can't imagine what it does to a person to live with it every day since the earliest moments of childhood. Nobody in your life will tell you the truth. Nobody in your life has ever told you the truth. They have never been honest with you about anything, ever. They all are incentivized to keep up the deception. Well, I have no incentive other than my own love of the truth and my concern for you as a person and my concern for everyone else in your same situation. I don't stand to gain anything when I tell you this, but I'll tell you anyway. You are a man. It's who you are. There's nothing wrong with who you actually are. Your maleness was never a problem that needed to be fixed. The adults in your life told you that you were sick. They diagnosed you and they labeled you and they defined you by those labels. They introduced horrific confusion into your life and then they profited off of that confusion. They exploited you. All of them did. The doctors, your parents, the activist groups, the media, the TV networks, they all swarmed around you like vultures, taking pieces of you. And now those same people, they want you to live a lie for the rest of your life, because if you don't, it will embarrass and potentially impoverish them. Well, if we're talking about what people deserve, they deserve that. You deserve the truth. And I'm telling it to you, even if it hurts to hear. Still, you need to hear it at least once in your life.
Hey, we're back.
I'm not sitting on my chair properly, excuse me.
Nor me. A bit sloppy.
Hey, we're
Hi,
back. We've gone
guys.
really bright again. That's okay.
Yeah, we can't do anything about it, really. So sorry we're a bit bright, guys. We are sort of...
It's a work in progress. We're doing our best.
We're trying, me and Lou moved them about, and at the time it looked like it worked, but how about shutting that curtain?
How about shutting that curtain? I just want to have a look at the fundraiser very quickly.
Let's have a look. Go on, you shut the
That's not
curtain.
the wrong one. You do that. Just go to the main PCP. You struggle, don't you?
Yeah.
We don't let Kat near the computer. Right, so I'm going to go to their
Just having a
main
look at the
page.
fundraiser, and it was on 6. Oh, right, okay, you want to look at the
So
main
R1 is on 8,144. So we've done 2,600.
No, 2,164.
Yes, exactly. But let's look at the main page of the total of the Public Protection Wales. 76,077. So that's what the fundraiser, but I don't know what it was on before. So.
And I do think some of that's already, even though it's not moved from there, might have already come out.
Oh no,
So-
look, we've had Diane Fitch, Paul's sister, thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you, Diane.
Cherry Galena, thank you so much. Kim, Richard Vobes. Okay, that's
Amazing.
fine.
Thank
Amazing.
you guys.
Thank you so
for the
much.
donations. Keep sharing the fundraiser. you know, even if you do it a few times, it doesn't matter. Someone who you might not catch it the first time around. I do appreciate that we are censored, so that's a lot of the problem. But, you know, anyone you know with big followings or whatever, whack it on the comment section. I don't know. Look, this information really does need to get out. So while people might argue the toss that it's irrelevant to go on, say, a post about something else, it's not irrelevant because this is obviously for the kids. So just wherever you can post it, guys. Some digital warriors today and tomorrow for us would be absolutely amazing. Just post
it really
where you can.
We're broadcasting across Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube.
Are we
amazingly.
still up on YouTube?
We're still up on YouTube. I can't believe it.
I know.
So we only opened the account the day before yesterday. Nothing's been posted on there apart from this live stream. So see, I don't know how it's going to go when we get later into the night, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I think with
so
YouTube,
I do believe
as
we're
it
waiting for
goes,
Sandy
if you
Adams any minute.
if you go live, they don't actually censor you until you finish the live stream, and then they strike you and send you off. So we've only got to last a few more hours.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I'm just wondering where Sandy is, and guess what? I've just left my phone back in the toilet again, probably.
Right.
So we will check on Sandy in a minute. I'm sure she'll be here. You might just have to poodle along next door and see if I've left it in there while she jumps up, and I can just get in touch with Sandy. Here she is. It's okay. Alarm over. Sandy's here. So Sandy, if you didn't know, has been campaigning and fighting. Originally, it was over Agenda 21 many years ago. She has since been recently very much on the central bank digital currencies and the whole green agenda. And she just has appeared. She didn't expect it to go viral. She